Hey you, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification button, because if you don't, I will come and take all your cookies. Yes, I did. We were all fairly young when it started, and when you are making big cash at a young age, you get an ego. Well, most people do. I felt untouchable for a while. I got knocked down a peg or two when people started to get shot. That's when you know shit is real, and it's better to stick to making money than looking cool. I was in a position of power. To those who worked for me, we were never on top. Nobody is. El Chapo is at the top, and he's in jail. Raking in billions a year is the top. We were never even remotely close to that. In our city we did supply a lot of drugs, but there were really only a few major importers. I mean major ones. You'll always have guys bringing in a few bricks on their own, but the guys importing hundreds of kilos at a time are few and far between. They also do not really talk to many people. Many of them are people you would never expect, ever. Your dry cleaner could be a heroin importer direct from Turkey. You have no idea. The guys making the serious cash are living normal lives. They likely rarely ever see or are near drugs, and have brokers. Many of them are not even close to being on police radar. It's strange. I made it high up, but it's honestly not a great life. And we weren't very high in the global scheme of things. Dealing sucks. Having to run a phone or having to find someone to run a phone, or even finding a decent employee is hard work and shitty work. A typical phone runs 3 shifts a day, 24/7 and deals with coke and crack heads all fucking day. Sitting in a car, doing laps around the city. It's like being a bus driver. It's not fun. Finding connections to chemists and weed growers doesn't make you feel powerful. Usually those people are super cool. Meh. I suppose I could get back into it very quickly, but I am happy now. Sounds like the Thieves Guild, to be honest. No clue what that is. There wasn't much thieving. I mean, the card guys kind of had to stop. Some made some big cash, but security changes and there is easier money in drugs. It seems like a lot of kids join gangs because their older brothers are involved first. I hate how they target people at such young ages. Preteens should be freaking out about puberty, not robbing people and doing drugs. This is often the case. It's sad seeing an older brother have to bury a sibling, which isn't a rare thing. The thing is, the way my thing worked, siblings were never recruited, never preyed upon, were never sent to rob people, nor did they have drugs pushed on them. We kind of had a no usage policy. If we found one of our line workers doing their gear, they would usually get fired. You can always tell when people are about to lose control of their habits, almost like clockwork. Thing is, we all, mostly, came from well-to-do areas. This wasn't a street gang and I have no idea how they work. I am sure it's worse, but honestly, we encouraged siblings not to go down that path. You're right. That wasn't a gang. That was more of a crime organization. Yes, I suppose it was. It acted like one, and wasn't likely still is very professionally run. These people are very cautious people, and they know the police are looking at them. And anyone who thinks police are stupid, is a foolish person. You would however be surprised at the relationships between members and police. It works just like a business. In fact, many guys supplied the street gangs, which was always a pain in the ass. I never dealt with that. I have no clue what happened to shit that low. Dealing with them is shitty. I'm pretty late to this thread, but fuck it, I'm gonna post anyways. I am from Chicago, but don't live there anymore. I used to run with the gang known as the Latin Kings from when I was 10 years old. I grew up in their neighborhood in Little Village on the south side of Chicago. When you grow up in that area, you pretty much take on the lifestyle because it's just around you. All of my friends had older brothers who were Latin Kings. I wasn't a privileged child or anything, so I had nothing to keep me busy at home. I was always in the streets with my friends. I had one friend who I would always be at his house. I remember that house was where most of the Latin Kings would have their meetings. I remember the smell of weed as it would come upstairs from their basement where they would all be. I remember being outside at night playing tag with my friends, and looking into the basement window and seeing some hood chick getting gangbanged by 3 guys. Every so often they would see me and my friends and they would always call us their shorties, which is what they would call up and coming Latin Kings. Anyways, I'll skip ahead a few years to when I was 13 years old. That same friend that I used to always hang with had just got killed by some member of the gang that we were always going at it with. The gangster 26s. They caught my friend walking home from the flea market on 26th Street, and recognized him as the little brother of Latin King. They shot him just for that reason. My friend wasn't even a king, but they still killed him for that. From that moment is when I hated the gangster 26. I asked my friend's brother that I wanted to be the one to get back at them for killing his brother. He took me to their next meeting, and they decided that I would get mines by walking a few blocks down that night and shooting the first 26 that I saw. They handed me a 9mm pistol and showed me how to aim and pull the trigger. I had never used a gun before, so I was pretty nervous, but I was also ready to go get a motherfucker. That night I went home and waited for my parents to fall asleep. When they finally did fall asleep, I snuck out through my window and ran to my friend's house to let him know I was ready. We got into a car that they had stolen and had stashed in the alley. They dropped me off a block away from where our hoods divide. I remember being so fucking nervous. I had bubble guts and everything. I was shitting bricks because I didn't know what the fuck was about to happen. I hopped out the car and ran across the block and across the street. I walked maybe 3 streets into their territory when I heard a bunch of guys making noise. It was a group of about 4 26ers getting drunk on their stoop. I crossed the street to the opposite side of them and walked calmly on the sidewalk towards them. As I got near, they noticed me and just all stood up and went to the sidewalk and started throwing their gang sign up. At that moment I was shaking scared. I was the most nervous I had ever been in my entire life. The closer I got to them, the more scared I was. But I knew that I couldn't turn back anymore, because if I did, most likely I would be the one to get shot. I had the pistol in my hand the whole time, but they couldn't see it because the street lights here in Chicago suck balls. When I finally got right across the street from them, I stopped and pointed at them, and before I could get the first shot off, they were already running towards the side of the house. I started shooting at them until I had no more bullets left in the clip. Then I ran back where I came from as fast as I could. It was the fastest I had ever ran in my life. I can remember hearing the wind blowing by my ears how fast I was running. At the time I didn't know if I had hit anybody or not, but it didn't matter. I had to get out of there or I was gonna get killed. I finally made it back to where the Kings were waiting for me and hopped into the car. We drove away and ditched the car once we were near our hood. My friend's brother took the pistol from me and told me he would get rid of it. By then we hear a shit ton of police sirens all over the place, so we went into the house and got high as fuck as we celebrated what I had just done. The next day I found out I had missed all of those fuckers and hit nothing but the front of their house. To this day though, I am grateful I didn't hit shit, because I would always have that in my conscience. That was the initiation process though. For the next 6 years I would live a life of hell, constantly getting beat down by 26 maniac Latin disciples and deuces. I was always fearing for my life, having got shot at about 7 different times. I never got hit, but I was always on the run from death. Finally, one day I was out with some girl I always hung with and got noticed by a bunch of maniacs at a gas station. They were in a big ass truck and began to chase us. They ended up ramming the car. The girl was driving and spinning us out. The girl ended up breaking both of her legs that night, and that night is when I finally decided I had enough of that life. I asked my parents, who had moved out of Chicago sometime into my gangster life, if I could move out to the burbs with them. They had tried to take me with when they moved, but I decided I would rather stay with my boys in my hood. My mom immediately told me that yeah, I could move out with them. The next week, I left all my shit behind and just got on the train to the burbs. I didn't tell anybody that I was leaving, I just did. That was when I was 19 years old. I am now 25. I have not gone back or talked to anybody from that hood since. They know where I went to, but never tried to reach out to me to make me go back or anything. I have since took up a crazy interest in video games lately, League of Legends, and that has kept me out of trouble. As I try to get my shit together, I still don't live a great life or anything, but am far from what I used to do. I normally nowadays just sit around at home if I am not working, because my mother is sick and I am the only one who pays the rent and bills here. But I'll take this lifestyle any day over the hell I went through in Chicago. I've always wondered why kids would want to join violent gangs and also why the parents would allow it. What was it about the gang that made you want to join it? Well, like I said, where I grew up, it's just a lifestyle. Sometimes you might get put into a situation where you have to get into a gang even if you don't necessarily want to. For me though, when it was just me being around it all of my life basically, I never really thought I would ever actually join or anything. But then my friend got killed and it filled me with the anger that usually pushes a lot of young kids to make the stupid decisions of getting into that life. I just wanted to retaliate for my friend's death and regret ever having that mentality. It must have been very hard and upsetting for your friend to have been murdered. That is truly awful and I'm sorry that it happened. In 10th grade, I was fucking stupid and wanted to join the local Crips for cheap weed and free beer. Getting jumped in wasn't so bad. 3-on-1 no face shots stomping 30 seconds. But about a year and a half later, I didn't want to be in anymore. Getting jumped out was ruthless. 5-volt 1 anything goes. Broken collar and cheekbone. And a fucking terrible concussion. Couldn't participate in football the rest of the year. Not worth $60 quads and a couple of alcohol parties. What's getting jumped out? You say, hey, I'm leaving the game. They say, okay, well, we have to beat your ass first, then we're cool. They kick your ass and if you survive and still wanna leave you can. Ha, you guys. Okay, I'll stay. Well, now we gotta beat you back in. Sounds like a good all beat off. Holy shit, that sounds terrible. If he stayed in long enough, it would have been worse. They'll usually kill you. Hence why some stay in even if they want to leave. Getting out meant moving to another state, and unless you had a nice woman willing to work and live a long distance away from her family for you, you are fucking screwed. This is where being in a gang starts to bite you in the ass. No education and no work experience. How long was the beating on the way out? If you don't mind my asking. 3 minutes on the way out. Hey, you made it until the end. We are best friends now. Like this video, hit the subscribe button, and remember, if you don't, I'll come back and take all your cookies away. See you in the next video.